Wowzers. Boy, oh boy, do we have a treat for you today, dear listener. Here on Inspirado Projecto, I have had the wonderful pleasure of interviewing Blythe Baines, musician, Deirdre Koval, precognitive. They both are students, teachers, and implementers of something called reality transurfing by Vadim Zeeland. This man is still alive. Reality transurfing encompasses remote viewing, astral projection, leaping between dimensions, time and space continuums, and realities that one would never expect to exist. And you're going to hear all about it in this interview. And yeah, that's all I could say about that. Here we go.
This is Blythe Baines, and you're listening to Inspirado Projecto.
Hey.
Hi. Good. I was just having to figure out how to get into the podcast.
Oh, I know it's a little tricky sometimes. Now, do you have a good internet connection over there?
Yes.
Okay, good. Gosh, this is just so exciting that we're able to talk about reality transurfing, because ever since you mentioned, let's see, you brought up the book. Let's see. Reality Transurfing in 78 Days. I saw you mention that in one of the Zoom after parties.
Right.
And so I've had that link open on my computer, and I started reading it last night, and it does it seem to, because I know that Zeeland has a bunch of different reality transurfing books, right?
Right.
Does he have a whole series?
Hi there.
So
Hi.
my friend Blythe, she just joined us right now. Sorry, Blythe, the internet connection cut out earlier, but now we got Deirdre on the line here.
Perfect.
So I really was so excited because Blythe was the one who first told me about reality transurfing, and then Deirdre, when we had that Zoom after party during the harmonic convergence and you brought that up, I thought, oh my gosh, I know what that is. This is so great. Someone who's actively utilizing this. And then I thought, okay, my dream would be able to get these ladies talking shop about their experiences with reality transurfing, because it's not, this is not information that's really talked about out there in the world.
No, it's not. It's new to a lot of people. And when you were asking me about his books, the 78 Days is a short synopsis of the transurfing, so you can actually learn to do it in 78 days versus the 600-page book.
Gotcha. Now, Blythe, you were talking about that there's another book that he wrote that you've also been reading and implementing. What was the name of that one?
This is I think it's called Tufty the Priestess, and it's just, basically a method of manifestation, and I've found it to be very useful and just as good as, it obviously implements a lot of the principles of reality transurfing.
Yes, I have that book also.
Oh, that's awesome.
And there's another book that's not by Vadim Zeeland, which is written by a friend of mine named Brian Scott, which is The Reality Revolution.
I'll have to check that out.
Deirdre, you say you shared that meditation, and is that so? Did you meet Brian Scott through I get this idea that maybe you're part of a reality transurfing, like a group of people who participate in this, or is that how you met him? Or
yes, it's a group of people that participate in it, and so he releases meditations and has a podcast. So we do group meditations every week, and he also does insights and reads, in his podcast he does different covers different areas also that actually enhance your use of reality transurfing.
So how long have you been involved with this, Deirdre, with reality transurfing? Well, first of all, how did you hear about it? And then how long have you been finding yourself implementing these tactics?
I came across reality transurfing on my own, not realizing that there's an intuitive side, and so I was teaching myself for the past several years these techniques, but I was coming up with them through intuition. And then I came across my friend Brian Scott, and it was like, oh, I know exactly what you guys are doing. I've been doing this.
That's awesome. And how comforting is that to know that you've found a community of people who are, this is just their language. This is just, you get a bunch of sports fans together, they're talking sports statistics. You get a bunch of reality transurfing people together, they're talking about their astounding, revelations and explorations through time and space continuums.
Yeah, and it's inspiring because there's times when everybody feels like they're alone, and it's like, oh, we understand what you're going through. There's another person that does reality transurfing too, whose name is Renee Garcia, and she has reality TV. She's the one that works with Vadim Zeelam in the United States and promotes reality transurfing. So she has a whole other podcast and a Facebook group on Facebook on reality transurfing.
Oh wow! So he's still around?
Yes, he is. In fact, he comes
cool.
on her. He comes on her show sometimes. He has some articles on Medium that he's written.
That's fantastic. That's cool that he's out there talking about this stuff and keeping people aware of this information. Now, Blythe, how the heck did you come across reality transurfing?
Okay, so I think that I found out about it from probably Aaron Dowdy on YouTube. He's a spiritual YouTuber. He's talked a lot about, the law of attraction, manifestation, just, raising your spiritual vibration, all this kind of stuff. And then one day he started talking about reality transurfing, and I was like, this sounds really interesting. So I went on Amazon and I ordered the book, and I got it, and I was just, transfixed by it. It was just, such interesting information, and it was such a new take on everything. So I was super excited to find it.
So how soon after you found the book did you start implementing these tactics and seeing results?
Oh, basically immediately. I think I had mentioned before the call got cut off, that even with situations with friends that, had gone awry in the past, I was able to kind of transmute those situations with reality transurfing. And that's when I really realized its power.
And since then, you've been utilizing this for your music career, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I use it in many different areas of my life, but that's one of them, and that's been, it's been super useful there. I know that I definitely utilized it this one time that I had put out the intention to be played on the radio this one time, and I had visualized it and everything, and I just kind of again detached myself from the pendulum of like really thinking that it was hard, and just really kind of lowered the level of importance. And then I meditated on that, the idea of that, of being on the radio. And then the next day at like 4 p.m., I get this email saying, hey, your song has been chosen to be in this thing that was basically a contest where for 4 days they played it, and then they would have a vote. And then whoever, there were 2 different songs, mine and some other girls. And then there was a vote, and whoever won would get on the Friday hot list show. And I ended up winning. And it was just so crazy because, it was kind of, exactly what I had envisioned. And I think at that time, this was the biggest radio station that I had been on. And yeah, it was amazing. It totally works.
I love that when you hear stories like this. Now, Deirdre, you've had in our email exchanges and what I've seen in the Zoom Hangouts, you so you're talking about how you work for a lawyer who deals with accidents.
Yes.
And you're able to kind of bring yourself to that spot, to that accident, and you're able to kind of see the details and settle a lot of things out of court, huh?
Yeah. I'm able to also, through reality transurfing, you can also access the Akashic records. And so I'm able to use my intuitive gifts to act went on. And so I also have a degree, and it's really funny, veterinary technology, so I can read medical charts, and I know how to look at studies and see the information. So I'm able, and I'm guided, by source to actually find the pertinent information and write a legal brief that shows what occurred in that instance, so that our clients are able to get the best result for their case. I mean, I've proven strange things like an auto accident can take out a pacemaker.
Wow.
Astounding. Now, what are these people? I mean, that must be quite baffling to them when you go, hey, guess what? I know what secrets you're trying to hide here during this accident, and who's lying. And I saw, you were busy texting, and as you're, like, are they, what are their reactions to that?
Well, basically we don't go into the negative side of it. Like, I saw that. We go into what actually occurred in the accident, and when you put out like the positive side, like one person was walking down the road and you were driving down the road and you hit him from behind and you catapulted him into the ditch. You struck him with the mirror. His head hit the windshield because there's a spider web, of where his head struck it. People can pretty much be astounded by how you write it and how it's worded,
Wow.
So it's a descriptive way to present it so that they don't really have any other legal recourse but to agree to a settlement.
Wow. Gosh, I got so many questions. Okay, so first of all, how long did it take before the guy that you work for, before he was able to fully embrace your magical powers?
He told me I was the only person that he had that has been able to actually read those and come from a medical background to know about, like, one client had multiple sclerosis. So how an accident can actually multiple sclerosis. So he basically told me that he was grateful and amazed at my ability to be able to approach it from this side, because he's never had anybody that worked for him before being able to do that. And my boss has shown his gratitude in ways like paying off my car and, giving me bonuses. Like this last week, I'm working from home right now because of the COVID-19, and he calls me and says, come to the office. I left you a package, and there's a new Pentax camera there. Since I started working for him, I've gone $5 raise, so reality transurfing definitely works. He's kind of, sometimes he's a little difficult to work with because he's older, he's 70. So his idea of how physics work is no longer the actual way physics works. So, I used to be frustrated because I would call him to talk to him about a case, and he would be like only wanting to talk about what was going through his mind and not me trying to get across to him what problem I was dealing with. So recently I just started sending it to him, cognitively through consciousness. I'm like, I'm going to try it this way, right? So it took him 3 days to call me, and what I was telling him would have never been something he would have accepted on the telephone, right? So it took me 3 days of sending it to him in consciousness for him to call me and tell me that he was going to do what I was wanting him to do.
Oh, wow. Wow. Now, okay. So for instance, you brought up the idea of accessing the Akashic records. What's the process? Before you reality transfer, are you setting an intention to access those? Are you listening to binaural beats? What might be the process that you go through to do that?
I set an intention. I'm precognitive. I've been that way all my life. So, and I do remote viewing. So I also use remote viewing to be able to do this. So, basically I set the intention, I do a meditation, and I go into a meditative state where I'm able to actually access and see what goes on. Sometimes you see it, sometimes I sense it. Sometimes it's while I'm writing it, it'll just you'll channel it.
I mean, this is incredible. I mean, so let's see. What are the visuals that you're experiencing when you go into the Akashic records?
Sometimes I'll see it as a replay. A lot of times I basically sense it, and then it's kind of like not so much a visual sometimes it's just a knowing of what occurred. I've had strange things though, like one day I was working out in my yard, and I saw where I lived, and there was this hedge in front of it, right? And I thought that was really interesting. The thought came to my mind, this would be really beautiful. I saw this beautiful hedge, right? And I'm talking to the neighbor across the street one day, and he's like, yeah, he goes, he lived here for 40 years. He goes, when I first moved in 40 years ago, there used to be a hedge in front of there.
Incredible. So, Blythe, what are your thoughts about this? I mean, when you use your reality transurfing, are you seeing visuals? Are you getting mostly just vibes? Are you what kind of helps you get into the state?
I mean, for me, I think I use it mostly for manifestation. But honestly, I am good at picking up on kind of like things that people are trying to hide. Like I've gotten very good at picking up on that. And I think that, again, part of it is just the mental setting of believing that like secrets can't really be kept from me. But yeah, what I do to kind of get in the state is I do meditate before. I try to meditate every single day. And I kind of put out my intentions and everything. I make sure that everything is kind of like leveled in terms of, again, like the importance and everything. And then, yeah, again, lately I've been using the Tufty Priestess technique, and I've found that that's just such a valuable technique. And they talk about, visualizing the plate kind of like behind the head. And I think that that's such an interesting way of doing things and like kind of programming what you want there. And yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing lately, and I've been finding that it is working for sure.
Right. So part of that is visualization when you're using transurfing, and what it actually does is it enhances. It gives you the scientific basis and the tools to actually do the law of attraction. Mm-hmm. And part of it is, actually putting yourself in the place of what it feels like to actually achieve those goals or what you're trying to manifest. And it's an intention, not a hope you put out into the universe. It's an actual intention. And then, towards manifestation. It's not just like, okay, I'm putting this hope out into the universe and then I'm going to sit back and wait for it to happen.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because in Blythe, we were talking about this earlier. So in this one I'm reading here about the 78 days, it's really cool how it's talking about how the mirror is, sort of representing, it's no different than just a little dot on the paper. It represents infinity, the fact that all these possibilities already exist and it's already there. And so it's just whether we want to become in alignment with that or not. It's rather like, oh my gosh, I hope that thing way over there makes its way all the way over here. It's more of, you know what? This is kind of the train track that I'm kind of getting on, and that's the direction we're going. So what are, let's see, I can imagine that as you continue to strengthen that trust in diving into that and manifesting things, I can imagine that it probably happens faster and faster, right? Do the manifestations happen faster?
I mean, for some things, definitely, especially when you gain confidence in one specific area. But one thing that I've found really helpful as an affirmation is, saying this is the reality in which this happens for me. And you say a specific thing, because that, again, affirms that you are on that track, that you're that person.
So is it kind of I'm getting this image sort of like it's your future self who's already there, and maybe this is just
right. You can
actually
use the Akashic records for that also, because there's multiple realities that you have the ability to tap into. So in meditation, you can also access your higher self, the ability to access, because the funny part was in my case, when I was younger, I was looking at going to school to be, a paralegal, but I didn't. So my boss hired me because I had other skills and I could do this, right? And so now it's like, okay, I know in the past I had an alternate reality where I actually did this. So I just tapped into that reality to do my current job, because I can gain the knowledge from this alternative reality by making it align with the one I'm currently in right now.
Wow, how incredible. I get the image of you can't really hug someone unless you open up your arms to them. So it's kind of like, I imagine it's like we're inviting it. We're going, hey, look, you know what? We already know how to do this, so let's, I'm inviting you here into my space so we can work on this together. So Blythe, do you, in your songs, do you find yourself utilizing any of these techniques, any of these this knowledge to kind of fuse it into the lyrics or the sounds?
I definitely think that my lyrics in a lot of ways are very channeled, because I do kind of go into a state where I'm not thinking at all when I write. It's just, I'll tell my producer Carter, my manager Carter, he's, both my producer and my manager, I'll tell him, I just want something with this specific vibe, and then he'll start constructing the beat, and I'll kind of just go into a mental space where I do feel like it's channeling, and I do feel like the only thing that's important for me in that time is to intend for something good to come, and for me to connect to the source of all creation. And I think that's really how creativity can kind of trickle down through you, is through really connecting and just intending that you get something good to write.
Now, have you been finding that putting out sort of that I mentioned kind of like a beacon, so to speak, do you find that are you getting feedback from people who are sort of aligned?
Oh, definitely.
Cosmic.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people that are attracted to my music are already on that sort of, level of consciousness where they're into astrology, they're into, meditation, all this kind of stuff. And they're resonating with what I'm singing because they feel like this is a lifestyle that they are part of. And unfortunately, I don't think there's enough music that's on that level of consciousness that's, mainstream enough for it to be relatable. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with my music, is give those types of people who are at that higher level of consciousness something to relate to, because I know that, when people are really into spirituality, it can become your whole entire life. And when everything on the mainstream is just kind of about, you know, like cars and women and all this kind of stuff, I think the spiritual minded people really can't connect with that. And so I just wanted to make something that had mainstream appeal, but that was at that higher level of consciousness, so that people could still, you know, enjoy music when they're like, you know, going out with their friends to like a party or something, which, you know, I don't know when that's going to happen again because of coronavirus, but you know, they can still have that kind of a feeling, but with the lyrics being programmed in a kind of higher consciousness type of way, where you know, I want the best for all of my listeners. Like, I want to be programming them with like positive affirmations of them being valuable, you know, them being connected to source, them being able to create their futures, all this kind of stuff. Like, I don't want it to be any kind of negative programming.
And, you know, what she's
That's
talking
awesome.
about too is actually in the book 78 Days of Reality Transurfing, and it's about how to get other people to go along with your intentions. And it's basically about tapping into what's important to that person. And when you do that, then they in turn want to help you manifest your intention, even though they are not necessarily knowing that that's what you're doing. That's what occurs.
Astounding. That's amazing. Now, okay, so Deirdre, you had mentioned, and this is like it just explodes my brain, during the Zoom after party, you had, well, first let me back this up. With your reality transurfing and getting more into this sort of, you know, being in this cosmic quantum leaping mindset, do you feel that by doing that has invited the sort of paranormal experiences, the UFO paranormal experiences that you've had?
I believe I have a science background, and so I've seen a lot of different things, even beyond, you know, discussing like seeing the portal. And I experienced them with people who are with me, so it's really interesting. I'm like, did you see that? And they're like, yes. 15, and he was learning to drive, and he got into a car accident, and he sorry about that. I did turn that on notifications, and it did shut it down. So anyway, we literally watched the airbags form out of pixels in a car accident. And I said to him, did you see that? And he's like laughing. He goes, yeah. He goes, I saw it, and I punched my air. The whole accident happened in slow motion. In time and space, we are outside of time and space, and I've seen that occur several times where things that have happened to me are outside. I have had so much time to get something done, and I literally that I need help, and literally stepped outside of time and space, where something that would have taken me more than a day was I had like 3 extra hours when I was at the end of the day, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe this, because my boss was flabbergasted. He said, how did you get this all done in one time? And I was like, well, I literally knew that I had to access and take myself out of time, so I literally thought that in my mind. And so, but there's been other instances too where I know that I've seen things that have been outside of time. There was in space, you know, a lot of things. I know I have angels, because there was another time I was with my son's girlfriend, and we were in a car, and there was a whole bunch of water on the road, and you were going to hydroplane. There was no way to stop. And I drove around. I decided I was going to go to the ditch, right? And like, my car is literally facing towards a tree, and I'm like, well, there's a tree. My car turned 90 degrees and was then facing the same direction as the road, but there's a sign in the middle of where we're at, right? And I looked at Kelly and I'm like, there's a sign, right? We passed through the sign. The sign came up on the backside of my car. And Kelly and I are both looking in the rearview mirror laughing, right? And she's like, I'll drive with you anytime. And so, you know, and it's happened several times with other people in the car where it's like, if you're open to the fact that how the universe really works, that there's a space pass through. It's kind of like what they talk about in where Jesus and they talk about him walking through a wall. Well, if we can match that frequency, we have the ability to do that. But it's belief that is possible, then, and you can match that frequency, you can actually literally do those things.
Wow. I just imagine how cool that would be to have, you know, I'm sure this has gone through many people's brains, a community, you know, a village of people who all understand these concepts. And could you just imagine just how highly vibrational that community would be and the inventions that would come out of that? And I mean, my gosh, that would just be so cool. I mean, because with this, I can imagine that you could probably meet other people in the, well, for instance, Deirdre or Blythe, either one of you two, have you been able to meet sort of other people on that astral plane where you made that agreement and you go, okay, cool, we're going to meet out of time, or we're going to meet here at the Egyptian pyramids, you know, I don't know where it may be, but you go, okay, we're going to meet there, and then you both are aware of this?
We've done it in quantum jumps as a group on the Reality Revolution. I've also done it with a group of people I taught to do astral projection.
What's that like? What did you visualize in your brain with all of the people? Did you go, okay, we're going to visualize this this mountaintop, we're going to, you know, this is the place we're going to meet at, we're going to meet on Pluto, you know, what did you pick as a spot to do that?
Well, when we picked the actual Hall of Records where the Akashic records were, when we've done the jumps, and we've done other places too, like the Pleasure Palace. There's different places that you can actually meet, and your soul knows where they are. When I was teaching people to astral project, we were all laying down, and so we were actually going into the astral plane, which they're just basically learning, so they don't know where to go. But I also discovered you can actually help people come out of their astral bodies if they're afraid. When we were doing it as a group, you know, I would just literally walk over to them and give them my hand, and they would literally stand up out of their bodies. So that was a way for them to actually get past the place where they weren't afraid, or, you know, that there was a fear or them not being able to do it. If they actually saw you and you extended your hand, they would just release and allow their self to come out of their bodies, you know. So you can set a place that you want to meet, and your soul knows where it is. It's kind of like with remote viewing. You could technically give somebody coordinates and they could show up there.
Wow. So for instance, with your when you saw that UFO outside your window during the Zoom after party, have you attempted to astral project into those ships or transurf, or, you know, any other techniques to go, whoop, okay, I'm blasting out of this here and going, whoop, blasting. I
haven't tried that, but I do know you have the potential to remote view and do that. I know that the CIA remote viewed Mars.
Whoa. And what do you know that they discovered about that?
They saw buildings. They went even back in time on Mars. And they saw that prior civilization, they saw really tall, skinny, tall people that were thin. And they saw that these people were sitting and waiting for them to come back, because it was after Mars' atmosphere and stuff had been destroyed. And so they saw these buildings. They went to several places on Mars. And so there was a group of them on it to basically be able to try to save the civilization, and there were some people that were left there on Mars. And so there's a whole remote viewing where they saw these huge pyramids. They went inside the buildings. It's actually been released under the CIA's Freedom of Information Act under Stargate.
Incredible. Now, Blythe, have you found yourself with astral projection stories? Have you been able to astral project?
I only have a couple of stories of astral travel, and they've all kind of happened accidentally and not intentionally, but I've definitely had some very strange experiences with like seeing the grid. I don't know if you guys have experiences with like seeing the grid, but I had just been like reading a book. It was called like the Sophia Code. And I was in this meditative state, and I kind of became the consciousness of the room.
Right.
And I started seeing this grid, and I'm like, this is so strange. Like, literally, you know, like I've never done any like drugs, and I'm seeing, you know, a grid in front of me, and I'm like, holy cow. It was,
it's the alternative space. They call it the 0 point field, the void.
Wow. Yes. Yeah.
And that's where I go to when I do my meditations and stuff. Because that from the alternative space or from the time, you're literally out of time. You're existing in a spot that's outside of time. So that's the actual space that you can create anything out of.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember when I found that book, it was called the Sophia Code. I was like, I don't know what exactly this is. It might be totally hokey, but it might be real. And I started doing these activation codes, and whatever it was, it ended up working because I had never been in that state of consciousness before. And it was just so totally crazy to realize that that was something that was possible for me.
Wow. Okay. So once you, okay, I'm imagining that once you get really familiar with these places, and you're not going, oh my gosh, what's on the other, what's in the unknown here, but you become so familiar with that language, and that relationship with that stuff, with the grid and all these other extraordinary things we're talking about here. Once you become familiar with that, do you find that it inspires you to go even further? It's kind of like when you first start riding the bike, you're like, oh, and then you get balanced and you're like, oh, now I'm going to pop a wheelie, now I'm going to go over a ramp. Do you find yourself like stretching further and farther and going, okay, well, let's try it. Let's test it.
I've done it as a group meditation on where we did the conversation, the after room. It still continues. They have a group called The Conversation where we did a layered meditation where there was only like 12 people on at that time. So everybody said an intention that they wanted for their life, and as far as the awakening, and then what we wanted as the planet. And then I led them through a meditation where we activated our Merkabas and the Plat, and we literally jumped into that reality. And so you can do it as a group. You can set an intention as a single person, but it was amazing to do it as a group, to hear the other people literally say that when they sent that energy out, they could literally feel the energy going out to the future as to what we were creating individually, and they could sense it, that they'd never been able to feel the connection before, because you actually have to, with reality transurfing, you have to align your heart and your mind, because if they're not in alignment, then your intention isn't, you're going to take yourself out of the intention, because your emotions and other things are going to contradict your thoughts, what you're intending. So you actually have to align your torus field, which once you connect your torus field, from that, you're able to connect to every other proton and electron in the whole universe. So from that heart space, you're able to connect with every other person and everything else within reality. So from there, you're actually able to, it's like a wormhole to other realities.
Wow. That's astounding. So, Okay, so now I wonder about this. Okay, because there are all these infinite possibilities. There are all those, all these infinite possibilities. Let's see, when you're speaking of everybody putting out the intention for, for humanity and the planet, and all these wonderful, wonderful intentions. Let's see, what is this an intention for? Let's see, since there are infinite possibilities and infinite, all these different things, which are those intentions intended for? Like, is it one of those things where you're like, okay, we're putting out these intentions, so no matter which decisions I ever make in the future, it will always hold true, that this wonderful intention for humanity and the planet is going to come to fruition? I don't even know if I asked that question correctly, but
what occurs is, because we're all connected into consciousness, when a group of people establish an agreement, they're pendulums. We have pendulums, okay? So when a group of people agree to a certain belief, then it manifests into reality. And there's negative pendulums and there's positive pendulums. Like an example would be the Republican Party is pendulum, the Democratic Party is a pendulum. And what we give our energy to is, we can either give our energy towards a pendulum of something that we want to intend to manifest, or if we're fighting a pendulum and we still wind up giving our energy to it, but instead we wind up giving away our energy instead of being able to use it to create.
Incredible. Right. So there's that idea of, if you're going to manifest something, think about what you do want, not like, oh, I hope this doesn't happen. You're going, this is the direction I'm going in.
And so
right?
Once you reach a critical load in where enough people believe a specific thing, that's when a manifestation occurs. So as far as the planet is concerned, if we can get enough people on a belief level, then we can create what future is actually manifested on the planet.
I love it, which makes so much sense, because I recently read an article. Mark Sims put up a little screenshot of this article that was up, and it said that 399 UFOs were reported in the month of July. And I thought, how beautiful is that? We just had the harmonic convergence between July 5th and the 14th, where we're putting out that intention of inviting our star family to show up. And so it was really cool to see that connection. It really was so exciting. So Blythe, have you had UFO experiences?
Let's see. I think I told you about the one time that I saw the flying saucer. I might have mentioned that, but it wasn't. Well, okay. So first of all, it wasn't flying, but it was on like it was. I think it was like CHP was like escorting this thing that straight up looked like a flying saucer. A bunch of cars were in front of it and behind it. And this was just when I was on the way home from Vegas with my mother, and I was asleep, and she literally woke me up, and she's like, Tess, you have to see this. And I wake up and I look over to the side, and it literally looked like a flying saucer, and the CHP was like escorting it. And it was like covered by something, but it straight up legitimately looked like a saucer. So that's my only experience of seeing something of that nature. And again, it wasn't in the air, but it did look very, suspiciously like a saucer.
Right. When they got all those protections around it, you're wondering
what
really is under that.
Well, and I mean, you could see the sides of it. And so it was just like,
oh,
I don't know. It was very strange. We had never seen anything like that.
And, I had two experiences with the harmonic convergence. And the second one was being woke up after we did that 3 a.m. meditation. And I had, gone to sleep, and I woke up to this like vibration going through my body and this light. And my dog was barking too. So my dog sensed it, And when I sat up and looked, there was these geometric shapes that were like in the air around, just floating in the air. And when I was describing it to Mark Sims, he goes, oh, that was a portal.
Wow. So did that look different to you than the grid that you were used to
Yes,
seeing
it was
when you
completely
were?
different. It was like, because when Mark Sims explained it, he was basically saying it was like a 5-dimensional object being projected into the 3rd-dimensional plane. So what I was seeing were these geometric shapes. So it was like a circle with these shapes be floating in the air around, like a beam, you know.
Amazing. Now, okay, so does the grid, so with something like that, because we always hear about this, about sacred geometry, were any of those, was any of that, how the sacred geometry, was any of that sort of familiar in what you saw there?
Yeah, the geometric shapes where I knew exactly what they were, and they were different shapes, and it was kind of weird because they were like floating in the air. I've had experiences with tests where I've even gotten to the place where I've been outside of meditation where I can literally see everything hang. Like I've been in my apartment, and one day I was just laughing because I could see everything literally hang in space, in the space-time, where nothing was really attached to anything. It was kind of like being in one of the Twilight Zone videos where you could literally sense everything just being in space, you know.
Whoa. Wow. So okay, now I would imagine that having a kind of relationship with the all that is in this fashion, I can imagine that this could also jumpstart some really interesting dreams too.
Yeah.
Right?
And part of that is lucid dreaming. So people don't realize that lucid dreaming, remote viewing, and astral projection are all types of astral projection. And lucid dreaming, actually, you can incorporate lucid dreaming in with transurfing. So it's basically a time period before you go to sleep, or when you wake up in the morning, when your brain is still within a certain frequency, that you're able to do what they call the slide, you know, part of the slide and part of visualization. The slide is where you actually feeling what it would feel like to be what your intention is. So the visualization you can use with lucid dreaming, where you're actually, that period before you go to sleep, you're envisioning what you want your intention to be, what you're trying to create. If you're trying to manifest your partner, your perfect life partner, then you visualize what it would be like to live with that person, what it feels like when you wake up in the morning, different events like having lunch with them, what people would say. So by doing this, your mind, it doesn't matter if it can't tell the difference between what's going on in reality or whether it's something that's created by the mind, as long as your heart and your mind have coherence. So if you can feel what you're trying to intend, that is the key to the actual ability to manifest it, to actually create it within in time. And so, like, you can also use different, so you could go to a place where you felt this real enjoy and real excitement that was at maybe you went to a concert or to a sporting event, and you can literally remember, or an animal, or some feeling you had when your child was born. You can literally go back and just feel that emotion from when you were actually doing that, and take that emotion and move it.
Wow.
And then feel that in what you're intending and what you're trying to create. And so that basically is the ability to utilize energy and frequencies to create what you want to create. Because transurfing, you actually, and especially if you want to do quantum jumping and stuff, you actually have to use a certain amount of energy to do that. So there's, you know, they used to use qigong, which is a way to generate body energy within your body. Spinning your merkabas when you're doing the meditation. actually, technically, you can spin your Merkabas, and they were talking about in Transurfing, in the Law of One talks about it, that the way you would have to be able to go into a spaceship is you would literally have to, you can generate a force field within your body with your Merkabas, and people don't realize that.
Have you heard about the thing, you know, when you're activating your Merkaba, how these black helicopters will start flying overhead?
You know, that happened with Mark Sims when we were doing that meditation.
It
one
happened
day.
with me. It was wild.
And yeah, so your Merkaba, and that was one of the things about Brian Scott was talking about, and he was trying to figure out how to do it. I'm like, it's like storm energy, because I was watching, you know, Haman, the physicist, and you know, when I was doing these meditations, I intuitively will sense things. So I'm like standing there and I'm feeling it like a tornado. When you activate your Merkabas, it spins like a tornado, because you have 3 different vortices spinning in different directions, right? And so my friend Brian Scott was trying to figure out, you know, well, how do you get the energy? I'm like, stick your hands out like they did in the series with Wolverine, you know? And I'm like, put your hands out and think. A thunderstorm, when lightning strikes, it creates antimatter. So when you literally stick your hands out, you can, and because all of the energy is in the 0 point field in space, there is more energy in space than anything else. That's what everything is created out of. So by literally tapping into the field, you can, you know, just literally imagine yourself being charged by it.
Wow. So Blythe, when you were saying when you were spinning the macabre and you saw the black helicopters, what was the where were you sitting?
Okay.
I'm trying
so
to.
I was basically, I was in a park, and I was doing, you know, this activation, this, you know, meditation with my friend Jovan, and we're just like in the park, you know, trying to do this Merkaba activation, meditating, and I had heard, you know, just from the internet that people had this black helicopter experience. I was like, that sounds crazy. Like, that's not going to happen. And then, you know, we're meditating, and these black helicopters start flying above us and circling right over where we are. And this is, again, a park. And it was just so bizarre. And they stayed there for quite a while. Like, you know, it wasn't like they were just trying to like pass the area. It wasn't just like they flew above and then left. They kind of circled around for a minute. So it was pretty crazy. I was just, you know, I was shocked, because I thought that, you know, that wouldn't actually happen, but it did. So I think that there are, you know, agencies that can definitely detect that kind of energy coming from, you know, wherever it's coming from, and they must be just trying to figure out what it is.
Right. Well, you're creating a torsion field. So yeah, that's a huge amount of energy. And so when you're doing your meditations and your visualizations, and you build up this energy in your body. And so before you activate your plat, when you visualize what you want and activate your plat, and then fall in or jump into that reality, the amount of energy that it takes to that was part of the group visualization, you know, when I had did it with the group, they were like amazed at the amount of energy that they literally brought up within their own body. They could feel it, and then they sent that energy that out into the universe as the visualization of what they wanted to see occur.
Oh my gosh, this is incredible. Now, Deirdre, where can people find the group that you're referring to? Is this by, like, you know, is it by referral basis? Is it something that people can just sign up for?
Both groups, reality. TV is on YouTube, and Brian Scott is realityrevolution.com, or he's on Facebook at The Reality Revolution. He also releases his podcasts and meditations on YouTube.
Fantastic. This is great. My God, I can't tell you how much I'm buzzing right now just with all this information. I love this. Now, Blythe, what's your recent song that's out? Because we got about 8 minutes here before it hangs up on me, but hangs up on us. But what's the recent song that you have, and how?
Okay,
how
so my most recent song is called Siren. It's about the myth and the archetype of the siren who, you know, lures sailors out to sea and then, basically leads them to their deaths. And I was like, I think it'd be fun to, you know, do some songs about these archetypes because I think they're so relevant. And, when people start seeing the archetypes in their own life and in mythology and in all these stories, they start to, you know, have a better understanding of the way that the world works. And so, I wanted to do a song about this one. You can find it on Spotify, on Apple Music, on all the streaming services. And I think that's basically all about it. Yeah.
Now, do you have any plans of writing any books about any of your experiences, Blythe?
At some point, yeah, for sure. Because I've just had so many strange experiences in terms of, especially my synchronicities. Like, it'll just be some crazy stuff, and like life will just lead me to the craziest places, to befriending the exact people that I need to be friends with in order for like this other thing to happen. And it's just been this whole saga. And I think I told you about my whole 777 saga a while back, and I'll see, 777 in these very just strange ways. Or, I'll meet someone and they'll have 777 in their number, and then that person will end up, again, having all kinds of other synchronicities with me, and then ending up being my best friend, and just all kinds of weird stuff. So it's been a journey, and I'm, just following it along. So, and creating, co-creating with it as I go.
I love it. I love the synchronicities. Now, Deirdre, do you find that a lot more synchronicities pop up in your life when you're involved with reality transurfing?
Yeah, they do, because the universe and the source, they're there to support you. And so one of the things like she's talking about in Tufty is realizing that you're in a script, and how you actually activate what you're in is to step back and say, I see myself and I see reality, because it's the only way we can change it is to actually see the broad picture of it and to step back from it. And at that point, then we're able to realize, oh, look, there's a pendulum going right here. You can, and how you actually nullify a pendulum is you do the opposite, or you ignore it, and so by not engaging with it is the only way that you can prevent a pendulum from taking your energy. So as she's saying, that's part of it, is to realizing that we're in a script and that we have the ability to control what goes on in that, but only if we're aware in our present moment.
I just love it. There's some of the most delicious material I could ever ingest is the synchronicities, because the more that I'm, finding that I'm in my intuition and I'm going, what's over here? Oh my gosh, yeah, it just leads you to the gold mine. Now, do you have any plans on publishing any books or writing about any of your experiences, Deirdre?
Yeah, but not, like she said, at the present moment. I am at the moment absorbing what the universe is giving me and showing me, and so I actually have multiple degrees. One of mine is also in communication and broadcasting. So probably eventually I will, but at the moment I am just absorbing and taking in what the universe is teaching me. And I just want to encourage everybody to realize that if you want to play with the universe will play back with you. And I've had some crazy experiences, like if you realize that you set something down when you're in a higher frequency, sometimes it's not where you thought you put it, and you realize that, I set that down when I was in 5D and now I'm back in 3. I've had to call things back, you know, and one
Right.
time you either have to go to that frequency and retrieve it because you know you stuck something down on top of it, but it's not there right now.
Gosh.
I was looking for my mascara and I knew where I set it down, you know, and I said to the universe, okay, give it back, right? Literally, I was joking and laughed and said, give it back. Well, it threw it at me. I saw it fall out from the bottom of the shelf, like manifest out of a shelf and falling on the floor. And I'm like, okay.
That's incredible.
I've had crazy
I love
stuff like
hearing
that
these stories.
happen too with like just one of my pairs of glasses got broken and I thought that I was like, I'm not gonna be able to drive home because I can't see. But then you know, I had checked before because I'll sometimes like have two pairs and the pair of glasses was not there, and then when I checked again it was there. And so I manifested glasses out of nowhere, basically.
Man, I love it. Oh my God, ladies, thank you so much for carving time out of your day to talk about this cosmic wisdom. It's so enlightening. I can't wait to share this. It's going to go out to probably 30 different podcast apps. Actually, anywhere that people listen to their favorite podcasts. So it'll be on Spotify and TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, a whole bunch of places. So thank you so much for being on the show. I just love this.
Yeah, thank you. It was nice meeting you, Blythe. I will definitely go check out your song on Amazon.
Nice meeting you as well. I definitely want to check out these like reality transurfing groups also, because I have watched Renee Garcia's YouTube and I love that. And yeah, I'll have to like check all that kind of stuff out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do love Aaron Abkey too. I listen to his stuff, so.
Awesome.
Gosh. Well, thank you, ladies. You have given me so much knowledge here. And just imagine if this was taught in schools to little kids at an early age learning how to reality transfer.
Yeah.
Holy moly. It would be awesome. It'd be so cool. All right, ladies, well, you have a great day, and I'll pass this link out.
All right.
Thank you. Have a
up.
great day, you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Hi, it's Mickey Dolans here. You're listening to Inspirado Projecto.